Welcome to Sacred Cow Shipyards, where no ship is safe from being taken down to its nuts and bolts. Alright folks, this week we're going to try something a little different that we haven't really tried before, and that's trying to do freeze frames in a video while I talk to you about what's going on in the video, because, I might as well challenge myself to do new and exciting things while I'm performing all this craziness for you. And speaking of craziness, this week's topic of conversation will be the UD-4L Cheyenne dropship from the Aliens movie. Yeah, that big ol' thing. In fact, that big ol' thing has been kind of the inspiration for a lot of dropships since it was created. Apparently StarCraft kind of cribbed off of it, Halo kind of copied it a little, and its design features show up in a variety of other places. Anyways, this is the topic of conversation, and already from the very front, I can tell you one of the problems, but we'll wrap around and you can see exactly what the problem is. No, amusingly enough, it's not the cockpit. The cockpit actually makes a certain degree of sense. Having your pilots or crew members, because the front one's the pilot, the back one's probably the gunner or engineer or navigator or all the above, offset like that does tend to improve visibility and, well, survivability, since this is technically a combat dropship. Now, why the pilot's front window is cut down opposite of her, and yeah, that's not going to help visibility, but she probably has a HUD in front of her, so there's not much to see that way anyways. In any case, yeah, the cockpit actually works, and that cute little airspeed meter in front of them is a nice touch by the prop department. No, the real problem is that thing right there. Apparently that is the GAU 113 TAC B 6-barreled Gatling 25mm cannon. Only apparently it's mounted in a powered ball turret, can do 180-degree rotation side to side, and 60 degrees down angle, with that nubby little barrel. Okay, for y'all who watched previous episodes, you understand that these miniguns that are mounted underneath cockpits in these turret configurations have long barrels. And those of you who know anything about firearms or weapons or chemically propelled devices understand that you get muzzle velocity out of barrel length up into a certain limit. And beyond a certain limit, it also becomes just impractical for the barrel to be any longer. This is especially notable for dropships and helicopters, amusingly enough. Anyways, if this thing's actually in a ball turret, it's got like a, 6-inch barrel, maybe, at most. But what's worse is if you read into this crazy thing, the rounds are caseless, which is a common science fiction trope. Only instead of not being cased but still having their propellant kind of glued onto the back of them, they actually use a hypergolic mixture. There's some liquid fuels stored on board the dropship that get injected into the firing chamber behind the round and then detonated to send the round on its merry way. I'm just going to point out that hypergolic fuels are just bad news across the board. And for those of y'all who aren't rocket nerds like, say, me, not only are the components of hypergolic fuel inherently corrosive and or toxic, they automatically ignite when they come in contact with each other. And you're going to put a corrosive and or toxic and very, very automatically combustible thing onto a dropship that's going to get shot at? Yes, technically ammunition does have a tendency of sympathetic detonations. If you get a big enough boom in a magazine, the rest of the magazine's probably going to go off. But this is just taking that concept to a whole horrible new level. But wait, this is kind of where the dropship starts getting really interesting. What's that, you ask? It's a massive rolling shoebox. Wait, no, it's not. It's actually a tank. It's technically an APC, but it does have a forward turret and an upper turret, and, well, it does carry a lot of troops, so it's kind of a hybridized thing. Technically, it's the M577 APC, fine, but it actually rides in the dropship. Now, I will point out that loading this thing is apparently a convoluted, time-consuming process, and that's kind of another design defect in this particular dropship. When you're getting ready for a combat drop, of course, you hope you can plan ahead and get everything loaded on your own time scale and schedule and whatever the hell you're doing. But sometimes you got to get shit out the door right then and right there. And, well, this loading process for the APC is not conducive to that at all. Now, it may be a function of the specific ship this dropship was on, and the fact that the landing bay that it's stowed in is honestly pretty small for its own purposes. But then we also get to how the APC is actually carried in the dropship properly. They don't clamp it to the bottom for easy deployment, although I guess that could complicate re-entry. Instead, what they do is it actually has a little, plate that comes out of the dropship, and the APC backs onto it, and then it gets lifted up into the dropship for stowage. Now again, this does simplify re-entry. It also probably simplifies the handling of the dropship just because it doesn't have this massive brick dangling from underneath it. But it also adds time to the deployment at the other end when you're trying to get everything off the dropship as fast as possible. Because dropships are notoriously sweet targets when they're on the ground. They are busy unloading, they're not typically very heavily armed, and they're big. And this thing's got to land, lower a ramp, let the tank drive out, raise the ramp up again, and then take off, as opposed to just kind of like hovering overboard, dropping it, and running like hell. So, weird design choice, but given how near future this movie was supposed to be for you humies, it kind of tracks. And then, I guess, technically this next problem is the fault of the carrier ship as opposed to the dropship itself, but what the f*** is that? So the floor of the loading bay that the dropship was in is also the pressure side hatch of the airlock that it gets dropped into. And it's got this complicated mechanical dropping arm that lowers it into place, which means you have to have either arms inside of the airlock that hold the dropship in place, or there are holes in the hatch above that allow the arms to go through. And why would you? Oh, and then there's additional doors, of course, since this is an airlock, that open up out of the bottom of the ship. Why is the airlock, why is the ship going through the airlock? Why does the docking bay have to stay pressurized? I mean, seriously, make the personnel cargo doors going into the docking bay, the airlocks, and then just suck the air out of the thing, open the bay doors into space, and then go out. And then why is the floor the door? I mean, seriously, that doesn't seem safe at all. Heaven's sake, the carrier ship seems to have artificial gravity, so they're putting artificial gravity generators in the hatch doors? Or is it some kind of field emitter? Man, I mean, seriously, why? Yeah, why? Why? I mean, I get having the ship drop out of the bottom of the carrier ship. It looks cool. But still, come on. Make the floor the door? Now, in space, the Cheyenne does actually present a fairly reasonable cross-section and profile. I mean, it's got a few weapons hanging on the sides, but it's not a big deal, and it's very clearly designed to be aerodynamic, which makes sense given that this universe doesn't have shields of basically any variety. And the maneuvering surfaces on the stern of the aircraft do augment whatever thrusters it has. And its orbital drop velocity is clearly very high, which again makes sense. This is supposed to be a combat dropship. It's supposed to get into places that are possibly under fire, drop off its cargo, and get back out again, hopefully without dying. And, I mean, you gotta come in hot and fast to make that worthwhile and to make it workable and, survivable. But then, as the Cheyenne gets closer to where it's supposed to be doing Cheyenne things and possibly engaging in combat or certainly doing a combat drop or this, that, and the blessed other, then things start getting a little weird. And by weird, I mean, yeah. Did you see that? It pulled some right proper Transformer shit. What the fuck? This is where I start to lose a bubble in the Cheyenne. I mean, I kind of like that it carries around a tank. I kind of like that they made it look very industrial. It's got the cool air intakes because it is an air breather once it gets into atmosphere. It's also very heavily armed, but why are the armaments out on the ends of appendages? I mean, you're not going to launch all 16 rockets in each of those pylons all at once because it would just fratricide the f*** out of each other. And these clearly aren't maneuvering surfaces because the arms are actually offset in the body of the landing craft. So if you try to maneuver with them, well, your pivot points are going to be a couple meters off in each direction. So that'll get exciting. So again, why does it unfold? What does that buy you aside from a really interesting cross-sectional profile? Make this a magazine-fed launcher. Make this I don't know, just stick out a row of 4 missiles as opposed to all 16 missiles. Because, I mean, man, one lucky shot and you're suddenly losing the whole pylon, missiles included. Why would you do this? And what's worse is, like I said, the Cheyenne is actually a fairly aerodynamic-looking dropship, but as soon as you deploy those pylons, it suddenly turns into a massive, complicated flying brick. And granted, it only does that at low speeds. In fact, it would tear those off if it tried to deploy them at suborbital speeds while it was entering the atmosphere. But still, what are you gaining? And maybe the best part is that 16-pack in the back is all unguided. In fact, there's a 16-pack on each pylon, a 6-pack of smaller, also unguided rockets, and then just a 4-pack of guided rockets. What? Now, granted, the forward pods have guided rockets or missiles in them, but still, why does it have a 16-pack of unguided missiles? I mean, yes, strafing runs to clear a landing spot, but those are really big rockets. Why not put a little guidance in them? I mean, okay, yes, the Cheyenne is a pretty cool dropship. In fact, its fundamental design is basically going to be eternal given how frequently it keeps getting copied. I would argue that those copies took a significant number of the flaws and corrected them. Notably, they didn't do crazy weapons systems that pop out and extend and what the heck. I mean, talk about increasing your target profile for something you don't want to get shot. So, good job, I guess, aside from, like, all the details. And that's all from Sacred Cow Shipyards. Please be advised that any ship left on the dock for more than 24 hours will be compressed to a cube. Have a good day.